Hello again, thanks for joining me on this video, YouTube family. And, it's getting frustrating doing these videos. I just did a video covering the shooting of Daunte Wright, the 20-year-old in Minnesota, and now here I am covering the shooting of 13-year-old Adam Toledo in Chicago. The shooting in Chicago happened, I believe it was March 29th. And initially, and they've already been going through court with this stuff, and there have already been false statements made. But Toledo was a 13-year-old boy in Chicago, shot by a police officer whose name is Eric Stillman. Police were called, they weren't called by people. It's a system they have set up to automatically detect gunshots that alerted police for gunshots in an alleyway in Chicago. The responding officers find Toledo and his adult male companion, whose name is Reuben Roman. The two men, the man and the child, Roman is 21. He's an adult. And Toledo, the one that was shot, was 13. When the police show up, they start running. And the police officer Stillman gives chase to the fleeing persons. He catches up to Roman, passes Roman off to one of his colleagues, who arrests Roman. Roman is facing multiple charges. And then Stillman caught up with Adam Toledo because Adam Toledo stopped running. He got to a point where there was a hole in the fence, and he stopped running. The assertion was that Toledo was armed, and you've already had a prosecutor for the state, a lawyer for the prosecutor's office, in court stating that Toledo had a gun in his hands when he turned towards the officer, which now that the video camera footage, the security camera footage from the area, the body-worn cameras by the cops have been released, and Adam Toledo did not have a gun in his hand when he stopped and faced the police officer. You have on the left is a photograph of Adam Toledo by that gap in the fence where he stopped at, turned around with his hands in the air. On the right is Officer Stillman, the officer who shot and killed Toledo. And this, a little bit larger of a photograph. And Toledo turned around slowly. It's believed he tossed the gun that he was carrying behind the fence that's behind him and to his right, which most likely, from what I'm reading and everything, seeing in the footage, is the case. Most likely, Toledo threw the gun behind the fence. Nobody knows of anyone that these two were shooting at. They were firing a gun in an alleyway. I don't know if it was a matter of one of them trying to sell the gun to the other. I don't know what the deal was with the gun. Nothing's come out about that yet. They apparently weren't shooting at anybody, and there is no evidence they ever threatened the police with guns or tried to fire at police. When the police showed up, they took off running. And this is a little bit better photo of Toledo, but you can tell he's got his hands in the air and they are both empty. Timothy Grace, a lawyer for the officer Eric Stillman, said, "The juvenile offender had the gun in his right hand, came to a fence, looked at the officer, which could be interpreted as attempting to acquire a target, and began to turn around and face the officer, attempting to swing the gun in his direction. The officer had no place to take cover or concealment. The gun was being oriented in his direction. He was left with no other option. which now that the video footage is released, we know that is just ardently untrue. There's no gun in the kid's hand. He threw the gun away. It's behind the fence. And we know now, because of the release of this video footage, that the kid did not have a gun. Some people have asked why it took 5 days to correct the state prosecutor lawyer who claimed in court that Toledo had a gun and had pointed it at police. Because one of the women from the spokesperson from the prosecutor's office said it was a mistake. He went into court and didn't have his facts straight. And what it looks like to me is a cover-up. The police screwed up. A cop shot a 13-year-old kid because it's absurd. It's absurd. Cops just can't help but shoot and kill people, especially if they're black or brown. Stillman's lawyer also made this comment: no police officer wants to use deadly force in the line of duty. Yeah, prove it. Because I can put together a compilation that will blow your damn mind that shows otherwise. The first instinct police seem to have is to use deadly force in every situation. It's absurd. And as I said, the state prosecuting lawyer had already asserted in court that Toledo had a gun in his hand when he was shot, which, again, is patently untrue. It's untrue. So you have police who write reports and lie in their reports. You have prosecutors who go into court and lie, all to try and cover up these screw-ups by police. Because even though Stillman's lawyer may say, the cops don't want to shoot anybody, I say he's full of crap. He's the lawyer for the cop. That's what he's got to say in an attempt to defend his client. But this is absolutely absurd. All I see are cops wanting to kill people. That's it. This is a photograph of the gun. This is after Toledo was shot. There was an officer that pointed their flashlight at the gun. A photograph was taken. Actually, I think this is still a still image from body camera. So when they pointed their flashlight at the gun, they got a shot with their body camera of the gun. And then the forensic people took a much better picture of the gun. This is that same gun by the fence. It's a 9mm Glock firearm. And this claim that police do not want to use deadly force is all BS. It's not true, because if they did not want to use deadly force, there are plenty of these situations where they could just not use it. In this situation, you did not have to kill a 13-year-old kid. I mean, you look at the situation. These two were in an alley. They were shooting a gun. I don't know if they were friends, what the relationship was between the 13-year-old Toledo and the 21-year-old Roman. I don't know if one of them was trying to sell a gun to the other, what the situation was. This was also at an odd time of the day. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that, 2:30 in the morning. So it was a really bad time for a 13-year-old to be out to begin with. But that aside, when the police showed up, they took off running. They obviously had a gun. They obviously had bullets. If they were looking for a fight with the police, they could have initiated one. Instead, they turned around and ran. But police don't seem to understand. To them, everything's a danger, especially if someone is not white. They're a very high danger if they're not white. And so police, despite this lawyer's assertion that they do not want to use deadly force, that is the first instinct of police nowadays. I wouldn't be surprised if a black man or woman got pulled over for incorrect lane change and cops were walking up to the window with a gun, with their guns drawn, firing away. I mean, police And my last video, they're claiming they don't have the money to train their officers properly, but they do have the money to dress them up like an invading military force, to put them in these crazy armored vehicles. They have all the money for the fancy toys and the guns and the bullets, but they don't have any money for training. That's BS. And this video, the protesters holding the defund the police sign. I'm 100% behind the defund the police movement. And let me be clear for all of you right-wingers that want to make a bad faith argument out of this. The argument is not to do away with police so that there's no police. The argument is to take money from the police force, which constantly has their budget going up, and put money into social services to actually try and help fix some of the problems in society that are causing police to be called for the wrong things. In this situation, it was gunshots, so police are going to be the ones responding to it no matter what. This is not one of the situations where police were called for the wrong thing, but situations where you have someone who has a mental health problem, who's having an episode. Police shouldn't be the ones responding to that. Too many times they brutalize people because they're frustrated and they don't know how to deal with somebody with that kind of problem because they're not trained for it. Hell, police apparently aren't even trained how to be police. They aren't trained how to properly use their weapons. They aren't trained how to determine a firearm from a taser. They aren't trained on anything. I mean, if you watch very many police interactions, and I've watched a ton of them, so many police forget about the Constitution or anything like that. So many police don't even seem to understand the laws in the municipalities they're paid to serve in. They don't even know their own laws in their own municipalities, let alone constitutional stuff. It's absurd. I mean, the level of police training is absolutely abysmal, and they're walking around with firearms killing people. And you have nobody doing anything to stop it. We have a problem with guns in this country. There are too many guns. The politicians do not have the balls to do anything about it. And then we have police who have been given this very broad reach in doing their jobs and no accountability. 0 to no accountability. And they're used to that. And now they get their panties all in a bunch because people want to hold them accountable. This situation, I don't believe this guy, Stillman, is going to face any repercussions. He's not going to lose his job. He's not going to be demoted. He's not going to be put on trial for murder because he was chasing a suspect with a gun. Because of that, because of the fact that Toledo at one point had a gun, allegedly, I don't believe that Stillman will face any repercussions. And I'm not that familiar with the mayor of Chicago. I need to read more up on her because this looks so much like a cover-up to me. The kid was killed. You had everybody, including the mayor herself, claiming this child had a gun in his hand when he turned towards the cop. And so the cop had no choice but to shoot him. The cop's lawyers, the prosecutor's lawyers, the mayor, everybody was pushing this same narrative. And you had entities that did not want this video footage released. And initially the family didn't want it released because they didn't want the world watching their son die. Their relative die. I understand that aspect of it. But for the police, I'm sure they didn't want it being seen because it blows up their BS argument. Some of the politicians in the city may not want it to be shown because it blows up their BS and their lies. And it looks so much to me like a cover-up. The kid was killed. The cop made a grave error because that's all cops seem to know how to do nowadays. Forget protect and serve. Forget doing a service to the community. All they seem to know how to do is screw up. royally by taking someone's life nowadays. It's absurd. Defund the police. Take money from the police departments and fund social services that will help fix society, and get money out of the hands of these ridiculous police departments that are just trying to kill people in society. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good day.